I just learned something from Terence McKenna, but I had no idea that the Minoan culture was a goddess culture, and he reckons that in the last millennia of its existence, they slowly put it to sleep in a kind of narcotic opium dream. And I think that might explain quite a lot. And it might explain quite a lot of Aristotle. If you want to go back and look at on sleep and waking and the different phases of how you can be awake when you're asleep and asleep when you're awake, it's very, very confusing. But I think if you go back and learn more about the Minoan civilization on Crete, then you'll understand a lot more about what's actually going on. And there are all these connections. With poetry of Sappho and that whole thing on Lesbos. And in the middle of all this, do you really want a bunch of neocons who think that this is the way to introduce the new American century, is by getting some tame hijackers to crash a bunch of aeroplanes into New York City? I mean, I had a strong feeling that something like what I'm about to say happened. I was going to introduce it very slowly with the long thing about Euclid and geometry and Kepler and Tycho Brahe on this island, and him going to Prague and being poisoned by the church and stuff like this, but I'll put that in the links. But they just opened his tomb up. And another thing I learned from Terence McKenna is that Prague was where Brahe died. Prague was this center of alchemy. And then all the alchemy in the later works of Jung, which you don't hear much about. So there's a connection there with paganism. And it's through all of the Platonic and Aristotelian ideas of metallurgy in human society. If you read Plato's Republic, you read of gold, silver, bronze, and iron. No, gold, silver, copper, and iron, I think. And in Aristotle, these become bronze, steel, brass, and iron. And the way you get from brass and iron to bronze and steel is by burning. So there will be an alchemical connection. But what I think was, Terence McKenna said he had a mathematical model of pace of cultural and social change. And Bill Binney talks about how during the Vietnam War his job was monitoring metadata. They didn't have the Viet Cong codes, but they could monitor traffic, and just by looking at metadata, Bill Binney was able to predict the Tet Offensive. And Bill Binney also mentioned that before 2001, before 9/11, there was a big drive to collect metadata illegally. And I suspect that there was some metadata analysis model that they were using that was showing all sorts of shifts of communications patterns that if you looked at them on a graph and you were an insecure administration, you would think there's some shit going down, and you would be able to see a kind of crescendo approaching. And then I don't know what they did next, but I think that at some point a plan emerged to use this as the next Pearl Harbor. That idea was current probably since before Pearl Harbor. I just thought I'd better say, look, we're trying to sort out stuff in the human spirit, in the mind. You really don't need shit like this going. I don't know why I think I need to say this, but it happened, right? You do not need shit like this going on. In the middle of it, because it doesn't help. I know it wasn't supposed to help. It was supposed to secure something, wasn't it, George? I don't know. You tell me what the fuck you think you were doing. I think I'll just leave it at that. Happy Sunday, everyone. I worked out why I'm depressed on Sundays. It's because there's all this Christian vibe. I mean, you have a religion based on torture and death, and you call the victims of that your saviors, and then you put it in the hands of emperors like Constantine. Well, what are you gonna get at the end of it? Look, we really need to wake up from that one. Okay, we really need to wake up from that one, because that isn't even a dream. That's a waking. It's a waking nightmare.